Good morning, welcome back to the channel. You're joining me on a quite a misty, chilly start in the Brecon Beacons in Van Vaar, about 734 metres. And today's video, we're going to have a quick look at the OEX Cougar II V2 tent. Now, it seems weird to do a sort of a mini review of a tent that's no longer available, but obviously, you know me, I like a bargain, I like a used tent, so you will see these crop up on eBay occasionally on Facebook Marketplace, and at the moment there's nothing on YouTube about these tents, so I thought, I own one, I'll take it out for a spin, I'll show you around it, I'll give you my thoughts on owning the tent for a few years, and hopefully it'll help you if you do see one used. If you do see one used, you're looking at maybe 60 to 80 pounds is a fair price for one, as long as it's in good condition. So let's have a quick overview of the stats. So it's got a 5,000mm hydrostatic head, weighs 3.65 kilos, which is a lot, granted, but it is a two-man tent, and I would say it's realistic for a two-man tent, and there's some additional storage inside the tent for a bag, and there's a decent sized porch for a second bag, boots and that kind of stuff, and the porch has got its own built-in ground sheet as well. So it is quite well spec'd. And in terms of carrying that kind of weight, OEX, when they launched this tent, they also had the old OEX Valo 7080, which is a bag I also picked up recently on Facebook for 20 quid. Really nice bag, and that bag's got two sets of straps either side of it, which are designed to fit the dry bags for this tent. So this tent comes in a massive bag, but it comes then with two internal dry bags as well, one for the outer and the pegs, and then one for the inner and the poles. So you can put the bag either side of the backpack, distribute the weight quite nicely and carry it quite easily, despite it being quite heavy. But obviously the obvious choice, if you are going out as a two-man job, is just to split the tent in half. One person take the inner and poles, one person take the outer and pegs, and then you are looking at a reasonable weight for the carry. So it's got Union T6 aluminium poles. It's got 3 of them. There's 2 that cross over and 1 that goes across the whole tent. So that's a semi-geodesic design, so it's really quite wind stable. There's plenty of guy and out points. There's pegs included to do all of the guy and out points and all the peg points. So there's multiple peg points around the tent. So it's actually really sturdy once it's up. So last night it was quite windy, gusts of about 25 to 30 miles an hour. Tent didn't move at all. I'm only using the included pegs, I'm not using anything fancy to hold it down. Tent did really well. You could hear the wind outside, but the inner tent, very, very stable, very nicely designed. It's got some tension bands that run across from the poles as well underneath the tent, which just give it that extra bit of stability. It's outer pitch first, but you can pitch the outer and inner together. Obviously, if you didn't want to separate the tent into 2 bags, you could pack it away as one and then pitch as one quite easily. But obviously, because you can pitch the outer first and it's pretty much freestanding, you just once you get that peg down, you can get inside the tent. If it's raining, you can zip up the door, be nice and dry, and you can put the inner in and do all your stuff without having to leave the tent. So very different experience to my last camp in the Gossamer one, which is obviously a tiny, low little tent, with very little room to move around. This is a completely different experience. So yeah, it's a good solid tent. It's obviously polyester material. This is 4 or 5 years old now. It's done traditional kind of camping, so I've taken my eldest daughter out in it quite a few times, and we've just done the car camping in campsites. So it's been pitched for multiple days in sunlight, and obviously polyester does much better in sunlight than seal nylon, so it's looking pretty good from there. Maybe it's tiny little bit of fading in places, but it still seems to be waterproof. I've been out in heavy rain in it, and obviously it's been pitched at campsites for days and in Welsh summers, so it's had multiple days of rain. It's never leaked, it's never let me down. There's good ventilation and 2 ventilation points that come out with little Velcro stands, and there's some mesh. The inner is mostly solid, but there's some mesh parts to aid that ventilation as well. And obviously the inner door, you can have it fully solid, or you can have it fully mesh, or in between, however you want to sort of regulate temperature and airflow. So yeah, it's a really good little tent if you can handle the weight. For me, obviously, I took it out for a wild camp last night because I was really constrained for time. It was only about a mile from the car, although it was a lot of ascent to get up to the top of this mountain. So it was absolutely fine for that kind of thing. And I think the design of it and the solidity of it, it's absolutely perfect for a summit camp as long as the weather's not too extreme. So yeah, nice little tent. So one of the few things I don't like about this tent is I find it really hard to get it equally tensioned out. So the OE seems to be a part that's either overly tense or not quite enough. So last night it was the door that was quite flappy. Just couldn't quite get that set right. It seems like as soon as you try and move it around to get the door nice and taut, something else goes slack, and it's really hard to pick that up. So that could just be me and being terrible at pitching tents, but it could just be a slight quirk with the design. We will do the traditional time lapse of the tent being pitched in the wind. Because it was quite late when I got here last night, and it was actually, when I set up the camera and was about to start filming, a couple of people turned up as well. So I thought, you know what, it's getting dark, it's quite windy, let's get the tent pitched, and we can do a bit of a talk about it this morning. So we'll have a look at the tent being pitched in a bit of a time lapse, and you'll see how it's pretty straightforward to pitch on your own, even with quite a lot of wind. Once you get that first peg in, once the poles are in, it's easy to go and peg the rest out. So yeah, let's get that, have a look at that now, and then we'll go through the inside of the tent and stuff. So you can see it's got its own ground sheet built into the porch. Obviously standard mesh and solid door as well, so it's double zipped, so you can keep it warm or have it a bit cooler. Semi-geodesic in design, so it's fairly freestanding as well. Obviously it's a bit windy as I was pitching it, so had to get it pegged down as quickly as possible. But I think it's quite a nicely designed tent. It's a few years old now, so it's done a few car camps, so it's been pitched for several days at a time, heavy rain and all that kind of stuff, typical Welsh summer, and it's never let me down. But it's never been out on a proper camp like tonight. About 734 metres at the moment. Wind's about 25 to 30 miles an hour, and it looks pretty solid. It's pitched on a little bit of uneven surface, so that's why one side's slightly bent in, just because it's a little bit higher there on the grass. So there's plenty of space for boots and bags and cooking outside, and then a nice generous inner. So the inner's nice, it's got pockets either side, plenty of space, some ventilation as well, and obviously a standard hook for your lamp and stuff and hanging things from. Feels palatial compared to the last tent I was in, which was the Jack Wolfskin Gossamer one, and also very civilised to pitch as well, because obviously once you got the outer up, you could happily get inside the tent, zip up from the elements and sort the rest out, and obviously empty your bag and do all of your bed and stuff happily inside the tent. So yeah, very different experience, but obviously well over twice the weight of the Jack Wolfskin one. So yeah, you know, you are you are making your choices when you take this kind of tent out. So yeah, it's a decent spec tent. Obviously the biggest drawback is definitely the weight, but from the inside of the tent you have got room to sleep two people with some storage inside the tent as well. It kind of goes out at the back like that, so you've got room for at least one big backpack there, and obviously room in the porch for another. So I think it is a true two-person tent. So because you can split it into two waterproof bags, I think if you were wanting to camp with somebody and you were willing to split the tent half each, I think it's perfectly feasible to take this tent up. And with the semi-geodesic design, I think it can handle a bit of weather as well. Obviously, I've only ever done campsite camping on it, but it's had a bit of wind and some really heavy rain, and it's done fine with that. So I think if you find this on eBay or a sales website for £60 mark, I think it's a really good buy. The materials should last well. Polyester is pretty resistant to UV light and stuff, so even if it has been out pitched from car camping in the sun, it should be okay. Yeah, it's a really good, quite technical little tent. Obviously, just the weight can be a bit of a drawback, but if you're just doing like tonight, because it's a really short walk from the car, just over a mile, quite a lot of ascent, but it's absolutely fine for this kind of camping. And like I said, I thought I'd take it out for a spin because I've not seen anyone else use it on YouTube, and there's not much information you can find on it online at the moment because it's discontinued. But you do see these kind of OEX tents for sale, these red ones. There's a Bandicoot 2 tent as well, semi-geodesic, slightly different design to this one, but uses the same materials and poles and stuff. I think it's a shame OEX stopped making these design tents really, because they did do an EV, a green version, which was much lighter. So I think it's a shame sometimes when manufacturers do kind of completely change their tents, because apart from the weight, there wasn't much wrong with this one. If this is your kind of thing, if you like looking at random tents, ones that you can find on eBay and Facebook for pretty cheap and stuff, this is definitely the channel for you. So do drop a like on the video and subscribe.